Hello guys, and welcome back to a new video and to a new trades recap and NQ market review. So I'm going to show you my perspective of price action. It's all going to be based on DTFX as always, DTFX concept, market structure only, and using my own strategy for the higher time frame and the lower time frame, right? So there's a trade that I took. It was a 3-hour trade, right, from here to here, and it was the only one for the day. I wanted to take another trade, but the price was just really melting down to the downside, and for me 3-hour for the day is more than enough, right? So let's start the actual review, right? And I'm going to show you how you can read price from the higher time frame to the lower time frame. Price for the last 20 days, we have seen a lot of bearish days, right? So each up move was just a pullback, right? So as you can see, after the market structure shift happened here, we have the first top and then the second top sweeping this, and then a huge expansion to the downside. Another pullback, a first top, a second top, and then another expansion, right? And then we have the first top right here, right? A second top into this zone, another expansion to the downside, right? So we know that this right here, this up move is likely to be just a pullback and then a continuation to the downside. So why is that? First of all, we can see that we are still early in the downtrend, right? So based on the DTFX concepts, we can expect a change in the order flow, right? Change in market structure after 4 or 6 valid pullbacks, right? So for example, right here, we can see that we have the first pullback right here, the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, and then on the 6th, we have the market structure shift, and then we trade it to the downside. But here we have 1, 2, and 3. So we can still expect a continuation to the downtrend, right? And also, you don't want to reverse the market. I always say this, you don't want to be the first buyer, right? So let's remove all of this. And this is a high overview of how the market structure looks like. So let's zoom in actually right here and see what's going on, right? From Thursday price action, we can see that this whole big move to the upside failed to take this high, right? So we are trading to the upside all the way to here, breaking this. And then when we faced this zone right here, we failed to close above this high right here. And then we have closed back inside the range and the CSS happened right here. So, you know, my strategy, right? We need to see price sweeping a certain high or a certain low to the left, topping into a zone. In our example, we have this fracture right here, and then close back inside the range and the CSS confirmation. So we do have that here. The CSS happened right here, as you can see, right? So we have that here, right? Let's keep it right here because we're going to need it. Price after that is start trading to the upside, all right? So as you can see here, it also failed to take this right here. We don't have a sweep, but it failed to close below it, right? So this indicates that there is a possibility of price now attacking this high right here. But when price started trading higher, right? So this can be labeled as a weak high, right? Because it couldn't make a new low. So price started trading to the upside, but as you can see, once we tapped into it, so this is the first top, right? So this is the first top right here, start trading lower. I told you that expect the first top to be on the lower portion of the zone, 30% and below. This is the first top. The second top, right? And we have a sweep right here and a huge move to the downside, right? So price one more time couldn't close above this. So this all indicates weakness, right? So how you can determine if price is in a downtrend or an uptrend? Of course, you're going to see expansions to the upside if we are in an uptrend and pulling back, right? And then another expansion, but also you will see that price is doing sweeps on the upside in a downtrend and closing, so sweeping all the highs and failing to close above them, and then closing below all lows. So body closures on the lows, sweeps on the highs, body closure on the lows, sweeps on the highs, right? We can see this happens all the time, right? We are trading to the upside right here. As you can see, here to here we are in an uptrend. So what happens on the uptrend? Sweeps on the lows and then body closures on the highs, right? Sweeps on the lows, body closure on the highs. We tapped into here and then the order flow changed. So once we didn't and failed to close above this right here, we have a sweep and then a huge move to the downside, closing below this. So this is a sign that price is now has changed the order flow from bullish to bearish, right? So this is how you can use fail to close, body closures, previous zones, how you can read the narrative, right? So a body closure, displacement to the downside. So now this whole thing is a zone from here to here, return back to it, right? Start trading to the downside. And as you can see, what happened, we have a body closure right here, and on the upside we have sweep. So as you can see, we have this sweep right here above this old high, right? And then the CSS confirmation happened. So this is a new zone, right? Now body closure. Now they are returning back to the upside in order to mitigate some of the zones right here. And look what happened right here. We have a sweep, and you're gonna see it on a higher time frame. So we have a sweep right here, tapping into this old zone to the left, right? And a huge rejection and the CSS confirmation, right? It happened right here. So here's a sweep. As you can see, only wicks above this old high, right? So price now started trading really heavily to the downside. If now we can zoom in and we can take a look at what the lower time frame is telling us, you can see that it is absolutely the same, right? We are in a downtrend. What are you gonna see in a downtrend? How you can confirm it? Sweeps on old highs and then body closures on old lows. I start trading after 10:30, so let's put a line right here. But as you can see, look what happened to the left before 10:30, right? We can see that we have the first stop on this zone right here, price trading lower with body closures. One more time, sweeping this old high, tapping into the 70%, start trading lower. Maybe you take this setup right here. So once price return back into this, for me personally, I would have taken this setup from maybe the 30%, and I would target this smooth edges, and price would have stopped me out, right? And that is completely normal. So this would be a loss, but don't be frustrated and close a chart. We are still bearish. One more time, fail to close above this old high, and we have the CSS confirmation and heavily traded to the downside, right? So after 10:30, what happened? We have a huge move to the downside, right? And don't assume always that price needs to come back into an old zone in order for it to continue to the downside. Price doesn't need to do that, right? Price doesn't need to do that, especially if we are heavily bearish, right? And I believe we had news at 10 a.m. right here, right? So news drivers will deliver price more quickly. And how do you know that price is not gonna give you the deep retracement into an old zone in order for you to take that setup to the downside? All you have to do is study the structure on the pullback right here. I told you that price, before each expansion, you're gonna see some sweeps, right? You're gonna see price sweeping old highs, and then what is the confirmation? The closing below the candle that causes sweep. So as you can see, we have this huge move to the downside. We have put in this high, started trading lower, and failed to close or failed to take this low right here. So this, we can label this as a weak high. So what happens to weak highs? They get liquidated. So we have the liquidation of this weak high right here, tapping into this zone. This is actually a fractal. All right, from this low to this high, a fractal, tapping into it, as you can see, failed to close above this high, right? And then the CSS confirmation happened here, closing below the candle that caused the sweep, entry on the 30%, stop loss here. And I was really confident about price topping at least at this low right here. We can see that we have all this really smooth edges, this trend line liquidity, right? So beautiful. And this was my first setup for the day, right? Once we had the break of structure right here, I moved my stop loss to here above this line. So I didn't want to see another move to the upside, right? So this was the first setup. Later on during the day, as you can see, a huge expansion to the downside and a shy pullback. Another huge expansion to the upside or to the downside, and then when we are pulling back again, don't assume that price will return to this zone right here, right? It didn't return to here, and there is a good chance that price won't return to here. It happens all the time in strong trends, right? So what you're gonna do is to study the structure right here on the pullback and see if price is ready to go to the downside. As always, look for sweeps on all swings to the left, right? And then the CSS confirmation. So that tells you that if price is ready to trade lower, or there is still room for a deeper pullback, right? If we go to the 3-minute time frame, we can see our pattern right here. So sweeping on this liquidity right here on this highs, tapping into this zone, right? And then failing to close above it, right? Failing to close above this high. And then the CSS confirmation happened right here. Price returned back. But as you can see, there was no 30% mitigation. So I usually take my entry there. But since we are in a strong downtrend, don't assume that price will give you those deeper retracements every single time, right? So one more time. Breaking below these lows, so sweeping old highs, breaking old lows with body closures, returning back. Now this is the first stop, start trending lower. This high failed to make a new low right here. This will be labeled just like this one, right? And just like the previous one, it happens all the time. This will be labeled as weak high. We can expect it to be liquidated. And it does right here, tapping into this old zone, and then the CSS confirmation, right? It is actually a body closure on the 1-minute time frame. But on the 3-minute time frame, we have a sweep, so we're gonna work with the 3-minute time frame. But again, no entry, right? No retracement. It happens, guys. Don't be frustrated. Maybe you can adjust your entry technique during these days when you see that there is no room for deeper pullbacks, right? Maybe you can enter directly after the close below the candle that caused a sweep, right? So another huge move to the downside, and now price started trading to the upside right here. So what happened here is that we tapped into an old level, but don't assume just because we tapped into an alt level to the left, it doesn't mean that this is the zone that's gonna push price to the upside, right? Don't assume that. Always the first idea that comes to your mind when we tap into an alt zone, it doesn't matter if it is a 4-hour or a daily zone, the first assumption that you would make is this is only a pullback into a previous zone and then maybe looking for another expansion, right? So don't be the first buyer. Don't be the first person to reverse the whole trend, right? So the area is, I believe, from the 4-hour time frame. We can see it clearly on the 4-hour. So here we go. Price tapped into this zone right here. we're going to start looking for buys once we break an important high, a protected high, which is, in this case, it would be this one right here, right? Don't go on the 1 minute and look for an important high, a protected high, right? This is a 4-hour zone. Then look for a protected high from the 4-hour zone, right? And then you can assume that price is ready to trade to the upside. I also forgot to talk about these sweeps right here. There was no zone right here, so I wasn't interested in taking these trades right here, right? One of the conditions is the sweep needs to happen inside the zone, right? So I'm adding the probability of rejection from the zone plus the probability of rejecting after we fail to take an alt swing, right? So the more the confluences, the better the setup, right? So this was not valid for me, but as you can see, we can see that we have some sweeps on the upside, and then before this expansion to the downside, we had the final sweep, right? So sweeps, very important factor in these markets, right? So here, price are trading to the upside, and we had some opportunities to buy, but for me, it wasn't really a plus setups because first of all, we are in a downtrend. That's the first thing. The second thing is that we are stopping into an old zone or the previous zone that still price can mitigate it and then trade to the downside, right? So you don't want to buy from here. That's the first thing. Also, there was some shorting opportunities, but still not high probability, right? So as you can see, we have a sweep right here. Price are trading to the downside, but what happened right here? We also failed to take this low. So failure to take this high, failure to take this low. This is not really the best environment to trade in when you have sweeps on both sides. So for example, if we have a sweep right here, and we do have that, right? And then we have the break of structure from here, then this could be a nice opportunity to short, right? Just like happened, for example, here, we have a sweep on this lows or highs, and then the break of structure happens. So this is a good opportunity or a good area to short from, but this is not the best formation that you want to trade in, right? So another sweep right here, but as you can see, one more time failing to make this. It eventually worked, right? But still, for me, this is gambling. So price started changing to the upside, and if we zoom in a little, so just because we broke above this high right here doesn't mean that this is the market structure shift and we're going to trade to the upside. No, don't assume this. Always assume that we are still bearish. Follow the trend, right? Price putting the first stop right here into this zone from the 3%, as always. The lower portion of the zone expect the first stop. The upper portion expect the second top, and then so the second top will likely to liquidate the first stop and then the expansion to the downside, and this is exactly what happened. So you can also trade this internal structure on the lower time frames, right? You can find decent opportunities right here, right? But remember that the higher time frame is still missing the second top, right? So the second top, as you can see, liquidating this high right here, right? And then the CSS confirmation happened right here beautifully, and this could be another opportunity for you to sell from here, right? So beautiful day. It was textbook. I have backtested a lot of this kind of days where we are really bearish or we are really bullish. Patience is key, and don't try to reverse the trend. Remember these two things and you will be fine, right? Don't be the first buyer or the first seller, and always wait for decent opportunities. Price will give you those, and even though it won't give you a lot of opportunities to sell in this downtrend, but when it does, the RR is satisfying, right? So I believe that this is the end of this video. If you have any kind of questions, leave them down in the comments or DM me in my Twitter account and I will answer you as soon as I can.